Stories to Feel, where stories are not just to know, but to feel. Today, we bring you a shocking report where an alleged statement by President Zelensky is shaking all of Ukraine, not because of gunfire, but because of a cold remark that has driven thousands of people to the streets in outrage. An alleged statement by President Volodymyr Zelensky is sending shockwaves across Ukrainian public opinion and igniting a wave of nationwide anger. In the context of Sumy city being under threat of Russian military attacks, Zelensky is believed to have said, "If the city is empty, then Russia will take it too easily." This brief but provocative remark has been interpreted as an admission that the government intentionally avoided evacuating civilians from the war zone to maintain a strategic barrier against enemy advances. Although unverified, the statement has spread rapidly on social media, sparking intense criticism. Many citizens see it as a blatant disregard for civilian lives, using them as human shields in warfare. Protests have erupted in major cities with banners reading, "We are not live bait," accompanied by calls for the president to resign. In a nation at war, a single sentence can shatter public trust. Shortly after the alleged statement of President Zelensky went viral, the outrage quickly turned into real-world action. A wave of protests broke out in major cities like Kyiv, Kharkiv, and other frontline areas. Citizens flooded the streets holding signs such as, "We are not live bait," "We are humans, not tools of war," and especially Zelensky, resign, a slogan gaining increasing visibility. This wave of anger is not limited to the streets. It has spread widely on social media platforms. Thousands of posts, videos, analyses, and calls to action are flooding the internet, particularly from communities in active war zones like Sumy, where it's alleged that no evacuation orders were ever issued. Many citizens feel betrayed, believing they were used as strategic sacrifices. The expanding outrage is fueling a serious crisis of public trust. From demands for transparency and release of the original recording to mass calls for resignation, citizens are raising questions not only about leadership ethics, but also about legal responsibility and the legitimacy of warm governance. At the heart of this political storm is the unexpected reemergence of Alexander Dubinsky, seen by many as the spark behind the crisis. A former investigative journalist and then member of parliament with the Servant of the People Party, founded by President Zelensky himself, Dubinsky is no stranger to Ukrainian politics. However, he was expelled from the party in 2021 after being sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury Department for allegedly interfering in the 2020 U.S. elections. After a period of political silence, Dubinsky reappeared with a shocking allegation that President Zelensky intentionally refused to evacuate civilians from Sumy, fully aware it was about to become a brutal battlefield. According to Dubinsky, Zelensky wanted to keep civilians in place to slow the Russian army's advance, a move he condemned as inhumane and unforgivable. The central question now is Dubinsky a courageous whistleblower or merely a pawn of another force? Some suspect he is acting on behalf of his own political agenda or being manipulated by pro-Russian influences. Others argue he is revealing a truth the government wants hidden. Regardless of his motives, Dubinsky's timely emergence has disrupted Ukraine's political atmosphere and placed him at the center of a tense confrontation with no clear end. Following Dubinsky's explosive claim, Ukrainian public opinion became deeply polarized. Social media platforms like Telegram, Facebook, X, and local forums saw unprecedented debates and confrontations. On one side are citizens, especially those from Sumy and Kharkiv, who feel betrayed and believe they were used as human shields for military strategy. They demand the release of the full recording and call for the president's resignation. On the other side, a sizable number of loyal Zelensky supporters swiftly came to his defense. They argue that Dubinsky is manipulating the media for political revenge, or worse, serving as a tool in a Russian disinformation campaign. Some analysts even warn that this may be a classic information warfare tactic, where edited sound bites are weaponized to force the government into a defensive stance. This division isn't confined to the digital space. In local chat groups, communities, and even families, heated arguments are fracturing personal relationships. A silent but dangerous war over trust, emotions, and perception is spreading across Ukraine. While the nation braces for battles on the front line, an internal front is forming, threatening the unity that is vital for survival in wartime. Amid escalating criticism, President Volodymyr Zelensky, once known for his stirring and inspirational speeches, has opted for an unusually long silence. No urgent press conferences, no calming videos like in earlier crises, and no direct public explanation. Instead, the presidential office issued a short statement, denying the alleged quote and labeling it as a distortion of the truth by an individual under investigation for treason, implying Dubinsky. This silence has sparked mixed reactions. Some citizens and observers interpret it as a deliberate, restrained communication strategy, arguing that speaking out now would only pour fuel on the fire and escalate a media crisis into a full-blown political disaster. Conversely, independent journalists, intellectuals, and former officials view Zelensky's silence as dangerous, a sign of confusion and lack of crisis control. They argue that if the quote was indeed manipulated, the president should appear publicly, confront the issue, and clarify the truth, just as he once did at the United Nations. Silence, they warn, only deepens doubt and allows conspiracy theories to flourish. In wartime, trust and transparency are the most powerful soft weapons a government can wield. Today, many Ukrainians are asking, is Zelensky tactically waiting for the right moment, or is he trapped in a media storm of his own making? Zelensky's silence, instead of easing tensions, is becoming a dangerous vacuum, a space where speculation, misinformation, and public anger grow unchecked. With the country already split over a single statement, his continued absence from the conversation is fueling further division. Critics say that if the quote was truly fabricated, the president should face the public and correct it head-on. Otherwise, his silence risks becoming complicity in the eyes of many. It creates fertile ground for hostile forces, domestic and foreign, to exploit and amplify social fracture. As one former cabinet advisor bluntly put it, silence is no longer a wise strategy. It's the sign of a government overwhelmed by public pressure. At a time when Ukraine is fighting a full-scale war of survival, a deeper battle for transparency, accountability, and leadership trust may already be brewing from within. And if not addressed promptly, the silence could shake the foundations of the resistance itself. The controversial statement allegedly made by President Zelensky is also beginning to draw international concern. Although major human rights organizations such as Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and the UN Human Rights Council have yet to issue formal statements, legal scholars and international media are quietly sounding alarms. Many warn that if the quote is accurate and unedited, this goes beyond a PR mishap. It could constitute a serious breach of international humanitarian law. According to Dr. Bert Hanwin, a humanitarian law expert at the University of Cambridge, willfully leaving civilians in a conflict zone for strategic reasons could be classified as a war crime under Article 8 of the Rome Statute and the Fourth Geneva Convention. Meanwhile, Russia has capitalized on the controversy as part of its ongoing information warfare. Outlets like RT and Sputnik published articles branding Zelensky a traitor to his own people, calling for international investigations. Russia's foreign ministry accused Ukraine of disregarding international law and its citizens' lives. Some reports even suggest that the initial viral video may have been uploaded from foreign IPs, raising suspicions of an orchestrated disinformation campaign. The United States, Ukraine's closest ally, has remained publicly silent, though conservative lawmakers in Congress have started to raise concerns. Several have called for a reevaluation of military aid unless Ukraine clarifies the allegations. A senior member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee stated, "We support Ukraine because it stands for freedom and human rights. If that's betrayed from within, our aid policy must be reconsidered." Clearly, in a global information war, a single quote, true or distorted, can reshape international perception, threatening the moral image Ukraine has worked hard to maintain throughout this conflict. While artillery still roars on the front lines, Ukraine now faces a second battlefield, one no less dangerous, the war of information. The alleged statement by President Zelensky has become the eye of a global media storm. In the digital era, where sound bites can be edited, shared, and go viral in minutes, one sentence, true or not, can critically damage a government's credibility. Western outlets like The Guardian, Politico, and the BBC have reported the case cautiously, emphasizing the lack of independent verification. In contrast, pro-Russian media like RT, Sputnik, and TASS have seized the moment, turning the event into propaganda, labeling Kiev's leadership as cruel, and even calling Zelensky a potential war criminal. Social media has turned into a battleground. Thousands of manipulated videos, memes, and biased analyses have flooded platforms like Telegram, Facebook, and X. The sharp divide between sources and the speed of information flow has bred confusion, fear, and polarization. Analysts warn that this is a classic case of perception warfare, where information becomes a weapon, not a search for truth. The situation is worsened by Kiev's muted official response. The absence of clear communication gives rumors more space to thrive. In such a noisy environment, every click can become an invisible bullet fired at the nation's social cohesion. This crisis proves that in the 21st century, war is not just about tanks and missiles, but also about controlling minds, emotions, and narratives. On this battlefield, a single manipulation or communication failure can push a government into a dangerously reactive position. Sumy, a northeastern border province, has become a strategic flashpoint in the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. In recent weeks, the area has endured repeated airstrikes and artillery attacks from Russian forces. According to Russia's defense ministry, special units have expanded a tactical buffer zone in Sumy to pressure Kiev's eastern defenses. Ukraine's general staff has confirmed strikes near villages like Bilopilya and Velika Pisarivka, along with sustained attacks on civilian infrastructure. In this context, the allegation that President Zelensky did not issue evacuation orders has provoked national outrage. If true, the decision to keep civilians in a combat zone would be not only an ethical failure, but also a risky military calculation, potentially using civilians as obstacles to slow Russian advances. Military analysts warn that failing to evacuate Sumy's population, if not explained clearly, could backfire strategically and politically. Militarily, if Russia seizes the area, it gains a gateway deeper into central Ukraine. Socially, the lack of transparency could further erode public trust, especially among communities already scarred by the early phases of war. Within the broader landscape, Sumy is not just a military hotspot, but also a moral and informational epicenter, where every move and word by Ukraine's leadership may redefine the trajectory of the war and its political future. Whether the alleged statement is true or fabricated, this crisis has exposed the fragility of public trust during wartime. While Ukraine battles a foreign aggressor, a second, more insidious conflict brews from within, not with tanks, but with words and silence. War demands sacrifice, but it must never justify the deliberate endangerment of civilians for strategic gain. The public sense of betrayal points to a deepening disconnect between the government and its people. If left unresolved, this rift could become a critical vulnerability in the struggle against Russia. The controversy also highlights a deeper issue: underlying political divisions within Ukraine, long obscured by the image of wartime unity. This moment is being exploited by opposition forces, interest groups, and possibly foreign actors, amplifying internal tensions. In today's digital age, where a doctored video can spark unrest, war is no longer just fought on battlefields, but in the realm of truth, morality, and belief. Zelensky, once the face of resistance, now faces his toughest test. Can he preserve public trust when silence itself is seen as a retreat from responsibility? This is no longer about one quote. It is a battle between clarity and ambiguity, between accountability and avoidance, between righteousness and eroded trust. And in war, these factors often decide not only victory or defeat, but the very future of a nation. Thank you for watching. See you in the next reports from Stories to Feel.